the director of this library, and no library director is anything without her board of trustees, and I have a wonderful board of trustees, and Danny Gilman is my president of the board of trustees for Bloomfield Township Library. So thanks for being here, Danny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, whenever I am at a League of Women Voters event, I'm always struck by the word community, and that we're kind of in this together just because we live here. Geography is destiny. It just always strikes me as all these people have taken time out of their day to come and do this thing, and it's all because we care about the place that we live. So I don't know, I have that feeling today. I just wanted to share it with you. But we're here to talk about books and other kinds of challenges that libraries have been facing in the last year and a half. I think that this has been a thing that's been happening. I'm amazed by the turnout today. So I thought what I would do is give you kind of an idea of the landscape of book bans and challenges happening mostly in public libraries, because that's what I'm most familiar with, but this definitely is happening probably more so in school libraries. Talk about a couple of specific cases, and then talk about what libraries do to prepare for these kinds of challenges. And then Danny will talk a little bit about the board's perspective and how they fit into this as well. And then we both are going to talk about some things that you can do as citizens and individuals to prop up everybody's right to read. I think we'll wait for questions at the end. We'll try to save some time and do questions at the end. All right, well, first of all, there are a couple of entities that track this sort of thing. The American Library Association is probably the umbrella organization that tracks book bans and challenges. There's an Office for Intellectual Freedom that's part of the American Library Association. And if you ever want to do a deep dive into the data on this topic, you can go to their website, and there's tons of information there. But also the Michigan Library Association, and every state has a library association that also tracks this. There's an organization called PEN America. They represent writers and publishers, so they're coming at it from that angle, but they also track this topic very, very closely and have a lot of great data on their website as well. I learned of an organization called, it's something like Association for the Separation of Church and State, and that organization is paying attention to this topic as well. So there are lots of people paying attention to this topic, lest you think that nobody is. And of course, public librarians, school library trustees, these people are also paying attention to what's happening. So in 2022, the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom documented 1,269 challenges to library, school, and university materials and services. That was up from 729 challenges the year before that, in 2021. It's the highest number that the Office for Intellectual Freedom has ever recorded since they've been recording these things. Just since January of this year, that office has reported 695 attempts to censor library materials and services and documented challenges to 1,915 unique titles. The thing about that is this is being done by a very, very small group of people. Somewhere I read that there were most of these challenges were made by 11 individuals. So it's a very, very small group of people. There have been many, many polls done in local areas and across the country that show that most Americans do not favor censorship of this form and support the freedom for everybody to read. In addition to books being challenged, there's also CDs, DVDs, but to a lesser extent. Also displays, when you walk into a library, you might see a display of Halloween books, for instance, at this time of year. But in June, we usually do a Pride display. And so displays that are calling up or elevating the books on the topics that are being challenged, those displays are often challenged as well. Meeting room use. There might be somebody who doesn't like the League of Women Voters and doesn't think that the library should host meetings like the League of Women Voters. Those kinds of challenges come up. In fact, we at this library had a challenge like that earlier this year. But what people need to realize is that the library is just offering that space, and we offer that space to everybody, no matter what their topic is. As long as they're not defacing library property or causing a disruption to library services, they are allowed to have their meeting here. What are the topics that are being challenged? There's a variety, but they all seem to fall onto the same handful of topics. Many are on race and racial relations, gender and sexuality, and oftentimes YA books that deal with sexual violence or domestic abuse. These books are often challenged as well. The challenges are usually initiated by individuals or groups who think that the materials are objectionable to children and say that they're protecting children. You've probably heard this if you've been watching this topic. And so they want to police books for all children and on all parents' behalf. Libraries try to remind them that we provide items on every topic for everybody, and it's up to you to decide what's appropriate for you and your family. One group that is often blamed for a lot of challenges is Moms for Liberty. I'm not saying that they do all the challenges, and no judgment on Moms for Liberty, but this group comes up frequently when talking about book challenges. And I've heard anecdotally, I don't know if this is true, that there is a list of 200 or so titles that just get circulated by Moms for Liberty and other groups that have this on their radar as well. I know anecdotally from some library colleagues in other communities that it's a small world, the library world, and we all talk to each other. So at one library, there might be a challenge to a certain book, and comparing notes to another library director in a neighboring library, the challenge is exactly the same. So what do libraries do when this happens? Well, all libraries have many, many policies that govern our operations, just like any organization would. One of those is called a collection development policy, and that is what guides how librarians select materials for the library's collection. And collection refers to all the stuff we have in the library. Thank you. So a collection development policy is very, very short. It's just a couple of paragraphs, and it says something along the lines of, we're going to collect a wide variety of items that speak to many different points of view. We like to joke that if we're doing our job right, we have something to offend everybody. Also included in that collection development policy is usually some kind of guideline for what to do if somebody wants to object to an item in the collection. So we call that a request for reconsideration form. And we ask the person who is objecting to the item to fill out the request for reconsideration form. And it's not just like your name and address. We ask if you've read the item, and then we ask you to say specifically what is it that you object to, down to the page number. Usually, so that takes some time. Also, it's a best practice to ask the person to fill that out for each item that they are challenging. So this, because the way the challenges are coming in these days, like I said, that big list of 100 items will just come to the library. But then they're being asked to fill out a form for each one of those titles, kind of slows them down a little bit. This doesn't work so well when somebody just complains about a topic in general, but we have that mechanism in place as one of the ways that we try to manage these challenges. Then usually what happens is that gets sent to the library director, and typically in most policies, the library director is the one who makes the call. And so I've been through this a couple times in my career, and there's a lot of research, a lot of conversations that happen, And I've never seen a book be removed from a library. At most, we might take it out of the children's area and put it in the teen or the adult area, but I've never seen anybody take one out. That's what happens here, and that's pretty typical of what happens at most libraries. So Danny, do you want to talk about the board's perspective in this?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Tara. Thank you. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Danny Gilman. I love coming to this library, so thanks for giving me another reason for coming in today. I want to tell you that, first I have to tell you that I grew up in California. My mom came in last night to visit, and so she happens to be here, and I have to tell you that because she fostered this love for libraries that I have by taking me often to the library as a child in Tarzana, California. As well, she always took me with her to the polls. And now I get to do that with my own children. And this year will be the first year that my own daughter will get to vote herself as an 18-year-old. So I want to tell you that Tara has heard me say this a million times, and other people have as well. My love for libraries comes from the fact that whoever walks in the door has the same access to everything. It doesn't matter what you have in your wallet, what you look like, what religion you practice, who you sleep next to. Everybody has access to the same equal rights, and that is my love language. So I love libraries, and of course I love this library. You can probably tell that with a director like Tara Moon, it's very easy to be the president of the Board of Trustees. I will tell you that we trustees understand that the materials on our shelves are not an endorsement for any particular point of view. We do not support one group's rights over another. Our job is not to support one idea over another, but to support all ideas. Libraries are a public service, and we provide public information. And I want to back up and tell you about the role of a library trustee. Trustees are appointed and elected by the people every 4 years. All 6 of the Bloomfield Township Public Library trustees will be running to keep our seats in 2024. We are advocates for the library and the library staff. We oversee the general management of the library, including hiring and the evaluation of the director. Again, very easy. We set the overall mission of the library. We recently created a new mission statement, which reads, "We spark curiosity and imagination by connecting the community to resources, technology, and support." We also direct the funding and policies of the library. Part of the policies we oversee is our material selection policy, which Tara talked about a little bit. We trustees know that the librarians who curate our collection do so with credentials and their professional background and understanding of the needs of our community. We do not question their credentials. We understand.
There must be some librarians in the audience.
We know that they know what they're doing. We have a robust process in place for any time a patron wants to challenge any materials in our collection. Both the material selection process and the reconsideration policies are always very available on our website. While our own Bloomfield Township Public Library has not been facing many challenges to our materials, we are always prepared. Recently, our Board of Trustees updated our reconsideration policy to officially ensure that a separate request for reconsideration form be completed for each item to be reviewed. This makes it quite a bit more cumbersome to request reconsideration of our materials, as Tara was discussing. I want to mention that just this past June, a few miles away in Ferndale, a religious group's nationwide anti-LGBTQ+ campaign called Hide the Pride encouraged people to check out books in their Pride display in an effort to deny their community the opportunity to see or read these books. Ultimately, that library was able to replenish and replace their display with books that were donated by the public who understand the value in books that offer a view beyond one's own experience, which can build empathy and understanding. As advocates for the library, we believe that not every book is for everybody, but that every book is for somebody. We believe in empowering people to make choices that align with their own values. And lastly, we follow the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights, which states that libraries provide materials and information presenting all points of view. Libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. We want every library patron to be able to see themselves and feel that their experience is reflected in our materials, and to feel welcome, not only in our building, but in our community. Our Board of Trustees is committed to fighting censorship in all forms. However, it is imperative that we all learn more about the people who are running for library and school boards. We need to do this to ensure that they too are committed to supporting intellectual freedom. I encourage you all to check out some of the most challenged books. Read banned books. Show your support for librarians everywhere, and library staff, and library trustees, and the right to read. Thanks.
That's great.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah, all of those things. Basically support the library. Use the library, check out items at the library. I was reading an article just before I came down today on one of my favorite management blogs, and there was a question in there from a librarian who was talking about the stress and the mental health toll that these challenges take, and the climate that is in libraries right now, again, especially school libraries. And one of the suggestions was to email the library director with comments in praise of library staff, or write things down and put it in an official place. Here at this library, we have a comment box upstairs on the circulation desk, and every single one of those comments gets read to our management team and to the library board every month. They get a packet of all the comments in their board packet. So if people do that, it will be read by them. If you show up at a board meeting and speak during public comment, your comments would be put into the minutes and it would be on the official record. So that would be a way to show support for the right to read and for intellectual freedom in that way. Like Danny said, know who you're voting for, pay attention at the polls. Always, always vote to support library millages and to support school millages. And yeah, know who you're voting for in trustees, and if you like what they're doing, keep voting for them. And if you don't like what they're doing, run yourself. I wanted to talk about a couple of specific examples of things that have happened here in Michigan. In 2022, a group of parents in Dearborn challenged the books Push by Sapphire and Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Both of those novels are about LGBTQ characters. The group argued that the books were sexually explicit and promoted homosexuality. The school board ultimately decided to remove the books from the school libraries. You may also have heard that in Dearborn, I think it was over the summer, or maybe as the school year was winding down, the school board meeting one night had to be stopped and then reconvened in a different location because hundreds of parents showed up to challenge books. I don't know if it was these specific books, but along these same topics. In Jamestown Township on the west side of the state, Voters actually voted to defund their public library because of the presence of 5 books in the collection. The library board refused to remove those books, and it coincided with a millage vote, and the voters voted it down. The library board asked for that millage again a few months later, and it was voted down again. So that library faces closure because of 5 books. Many people across the world actually have made lots of donations to that library, the Patmos Public Library, including the famous novelist Nora Roberts. So that money will run this library for another year, but it won't run it forever. And so unless that library can mobilize its residents to vote for its millage, it will cease. And as Danny said, libraries serve more than just a place to check out books. We're voting places, polling places. It might be the only way a person can access the internet in their community. It might just be the only safe, warm place they can go. Maybe they are lonely and they just want to chat with a librarian. There are many purposes that libraries serve besides just a place to find books, which is really important. In Lapeer County, there have been challenges. In fact, the county prosecutor in Lapeer County was talking about writing up some criminal charges against the library director if she did not remove a book. There were some articles about this in Bridge, Michigan, and the library director was quoted as saying, well, if he wants to know where I am, he knows where to find me. I'm at the library serving the residents of Lapeer. And then he backtracked, and that never went anywhere. But there has been legislation passed across the country limiting access to books on very many topics. So that's another thing that you need to do to look out for, is paying attention to legislation and telling your legislators that you are in support of intellectual freedom. There are many, many other examples from across the country of challenges to books. Most of the challenges have taken place in Texas and Florida. Missouri is another Missouri is another hotbed. But really, there have been challenges in nearly every single state, at least a handful, but those are where they are concentrated. Another organization you can pay attention to is one called Every Library. That is an advocacy and lobbying organization for libraries. And they would be happy to take a donation from you so that they can continue to lobby for libraries and the right to read and access information. That's kind of all I had prepared to say. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I would just reiterate the fact that many of these challenges and many of these loud voices come from a small group of people, but they're loud. And so on the other side, we need to also be loud, and we need to stand up so that people don't think that there's nothing we can do to fight these kinds of challenges. We can show support for libraries and librarians. We can show up to open meetings and have our comments made on an official record. And we can speak about this to other members of our community so that people know that there are people working to advocate for intellectual freedom and for the right to read.
I'll reiterate, too, that when I first became a librarian in 2001, intellectual freedom was something that we were taught and read about and heard about, but it always seemed very obscure and not vital until the last couple of years. I never really internalized how important it is that we are here fighting for this right to read and for intellectual freedom. So I guess, does anybody have any questions or comments? Or Belinda?
I have 2 comments. I think Illinois enacted some legislation to protect.
She needs to turn around.
I think Illinois enacted some legislation that would protect.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I forget what it was, but it was a statewide, they're like, we're never gonna have censorship in Illinois. And that small library, the last I read, the
Patmos.
community
Yeah.
is working to try to find a way to keep it open and have some compromise. It's created, it finally created a dialogue in the
Okay.
community. And so, which might be, it needed a dialogue. Let's talk about it as a community, so maybe there's some hope there that sanity will prevail.
Thank you. Somebody back there.
Do you have any information about the bookmobile that is going around and giving away the books that have been banned in certain communities freely, and how to donate to them?
The question was whether I have any information about a bookmobile that's going around giving out banned books, essentially, and if there's a way to donate. Do you know?
It's through MoveOn.org.
Through moveon.org.
I just wanted to, hi, I'm Wendy Friedman. I happen to be running for a library board trustee in Birmingham, but I am from Chicago, and they did recently just pass a bill that has already been signed by the governor, and it will take place obviously in January. It'll start being enacted. But it outlaws book bans, and the penalty for any school library or public library that tries to ban a book is that they are no longer eligible for any state grants. And that's important money. So I've actually called State Representative Matt Kolzar just yesterday, and spoke to he's head of the Education Committee, and hopefully his administrative assistant will convey the entire message, but am recommending that Michigan become the second state in the country to enact this kind of outlawing book bans. So if you want to write a letter, he's the head of the Education Committee, to Matt Kolzar.
K-O-L.
E-S-Z-A-R.
Again, please.
It's Z, but it has to be
K-O-L.
K-O-L-E-S-Z-A-R. He is a past educator,
Did you get it?
and he leads the state education committee.
And
And Wendy's already introduced the notion, so let's write and support it.
I think that would be helpful. The entire committee, Debbie just told me, is made up of all educators,
Same
which
with
will
the Senate
also
Education Committee.
be fantastic.
All
And
educators.
there is no doubt that the governor would sign that kind of a bill, and we could be the second state. I mean, it would pretty much be amazing, right?
That would be.
Another comment about Patmos Library, which is the library in Jamestown. There is state funding that is given out to public libraries from the state of Michigan.
I did not know that.
I was going to say another comment about the Patmos Library. There is state funding that is given out by the state of Michigan. We call it state aid. And you have to fill out an application to receive state aid as a public library. For a library like this one, it's a very small portion of our budget. But in a library like Patmos or a very small rural library, it is a significant portion of the budget. In order to qualify for state aid, your library has to be supported by at least 0.3 of a mil of voter support. So it's kind of like matching funds, or the state wants you to also support your library as well. So if Patmos's residents are not supporting that millage, they will not get that state funding either. So not only will they not get their property taxes, they won't get state funding either.
Thank you. I'm going to go this way and then to Julia.
Shelley.
Hi, my name is Shelley Weisberg, and I wanted to follow up on Wendy's comments. I just voted for Wendy, thank you. I think it's really important that we have a state, as much as we can do at the state level. But as we all know, this type of culture, it comes up from the bottom, and the only way to fight it is changing the culture. the state legislature happens to be in good hands right now, but we don't know if it'll stay, and all those laws can be overturned. So I want to support that, but I also want to say the reason these 11 people have been so successful is because they have infiltrated school boards, library boards, state boards of ed, everything that we need to do. We need to remember to do it from the bottom up, because it's the only way we make it permanent. So thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm going to run over to Julia. I think.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Building on the point that's just made, the question comes to mind, do we have a central place that the average person becomes educated or could become educated about the issue? Because that will also impact the advocacy. It impacts, you know, if no one knows about the issue, then the action is limited. So is there a central place that this information gets posted when books are banned? Tara.
Thank you. That would be the American Library Association, the Michigan Library Association, those are, and other organizations like that. Yep. In fact, the Michigan Library Association started a resource called My Right to Read. And that is focused on libraries and challenges in Michigan, but that is a place where residents and library workers can go for resources and information.
Tara, does that also include school libraries?
Howard asked if that also includes school libraries. Yes, the Michigan Library Association covers all libraries in Michigan.
I see Deb. Deb, I'm coming.
Just pass it back.
Hi, Deb Macon. My question for you, Tara, is how do we take it 2 steps further
I'll repeat her question.
for advocacy? Because I have signed up for that state website and I haven't been given a call to action. So I don't really need to have someone else tell me what to do, but for those of us who do, where's that advocacy network at the grassroots level, like Shelley so wisely spoke of?
Deb asked, where's the grassroots advocacy that Shelley mentioned? I mean, it's really you using your library and paying attention. Because if there's not any challenges in your local community, there's not much to do in that vein. But paying attention to what's happening in your local library, and then neighboring libraries too, and listening and looking for articles to see if you can combat any challenges.
And finding out who's running for your school board and showing up to those meetings and library boards. And if you if you don't agree with them, then speak up and run yourselves. You know, this is where the changes are made. And if the wrong people get there, the wrong decisions will be made.
How many librarians or former librarians are here? How about teachers? Any teachers? Okay. Lots. What about trustees, school or library trustees? All right. I'm preaching to the choir here.
Amen.
So my question is, I know that, can you hear me?
Hold it close and don't move it.
Voters has forums for all elected officials, including school boards. What's an easy way for everyone here? Is there a website you go to that you can just punch in? What city isn't that at? You know what I'm asking. So.
There's a couple ways you can learn about candidates. One of them is a website called vote411.org. You go to that site, it will send you a prompt to put in your name and address. It will then take you directly to a ballot, which will take you to candidates. One of the challenges, and Maria, I'll just speak for you, and me. One of the challenges we've been facing when either a municipality or a school district request for us to come put on a candidate forum is, especially when it's a partisan race, we have a number of candidates who decide not to join us. So that's been difficult because for those who do join us, we want to make sure they get equal airtime. So we've kind of got to tweak candidate forum by candidate forum. It's less of a problem with a municipality or a nonpartisan race. But the other thing, we have a magnificent committee that puts questions together. And those are the questions that you'll see in vote411.org. Of course, when we do our forums, all the Q&A are originated by the audience. On occasion, we bring a couple of generics that, in case not enough folks show up. The other thing our entire board is committed to is making sure that wonderful folks like we have here today, Cable, are present in the room. Otherwise, we don't do a candidate forum. And Judy Bateman has just been vigilant on that. Sorry, I don't see her in the room today because I know she would be standing up for me and explaining all of this to you. And then the cable folks will connect it to other local cables. We do our best. It's a shame we don't have the kind of press we used to have that would interview or endorse, but those days are gone.
Jerry, aren't the League of Women Voters Oakland area forums all on YouTube eventually?
Yes.
So that's
right.
You could Google it right now.
Yeah, you can go to YouTube also. Yeah, that's kind of new for us, but thank you for reminding me. You've had your hand up for a while, so want the mic or?
Yeah. I don't know, I can use my teacher voice.
We can hear you.
I don't know if y'all can hear, but I was actually a part of the whole Lapeer library situation. And I stood up for the right to read. I just want everybody to know. Twice we had 2 meetings in overflow rooms. So there were quite a few people there. And what ended up happening is, well, the prosecutor was booed pretty much. But we had a lawyer at the second meeting. The library's lawyer came out and said, you cannot ban these books, one of which was genderqueer, of course, and the other one was a book for a 3-year-old called Fred Gets Dressed. Who knows what kind of strange mind thought that should be censored. But anyway, the lawyer said that you could not censor the books in a library, public library, because it's against the First Amendment. The problem comes, as they said, with schools because they are what's called in loco parentis, which I'm sure all of you know. And that's why they are able to get these book bans through public schools. So, and that kind of tamped everything down. People left grumbling, saying it was rigged. And
that constitutes.
Oh, thank you.
That's what I heard 2 times. This is all rigged.
Thank you for that update.
So, yeah, that's, I mean, if you have a lawyer, that,
this lady really wants.
Thank you. I'm coming up front.
I was just going to say, this young lady, she's had her arm up diligently. I'm working with she has shoulder problems.
Okay.
That's why.
I am a retired English teacher, and when I was teaching, the policy advised by the National Council of Teachers of English is that no child be required to read a book that his family objected to. But by the same token, we were not encouraged to allow that one family to determine the curriculum. I did have a student who was an excellent student and just a lovely, lovely human being. And he said his parents really objected to a novel that I was assigning. And I said, no problem, you will not have to read it. And what we will do is I will have you go to the library and read a combination of stories and other material that we have in our library that would enable you to get some background. And of course, I'll meet with you after school to go over all of this reading. But I said, I need to find a collection of materials that will teach you the style of the novel that I was reading and show you how it fits into the chronology of the American literature. And I will also need to gather a series of sources which will show you the literary devices that are used in that novel so that you will know them. And if you're ever in an essay situation to apply for a university and you're supposed to pick a work of literature that addresses this kind of literary analysis or that style or whatever, that you will be equipped to do so. So he said, well, that's not really what my parents want. They want you to teach another novel. I said, well, this novel has been selected for all those reasons that I told you, and I can't just leave a chunk of the development of writing style out of and literary analysis device that's used in this one. So he went home and had a chat with his parents, and he said, I'm staying in the class and I'm reading the novel.
What a good teacher. Mm-hmm.
The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh my
God. Really?
Thank you for
What was
making us
objectionable
laugh.
about the grapes of wrath?
Oh, okay.
I'm trying.
I can't really remember.
Yeah, yeah.
I never read it. I don't even know what's in it.
Excuse me, I have a procedural policy kind of question. If, for example, you decide somebody brings a challenge and you deny the challenge, they then have the right, do they, to appeal to your Board of Trustees? Okay.
Yes.
Is that standard policy across the board in libraries, or?
Pretty much, yes. That's usually how it goes, is that the director makes the decision and then the resident could appeal it to the Board of Trustees.
But the board's decision obviously is going to be final.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Every year, libraries celebrate Banned Books Week, which is usually the second week of October-ish. And we encourage people to read books that have been challenged. And this is a really, really, really tiny little graphic, but you can find lists of banned books everywhere. If you just Google banned books, you'll find a list. So I would encourage you to read banned books. That's another way to support intellectual freedom.
Do we get a sticker?
Hi. I'm Shelley Gatch. I was library director in Huntington Woods for 27 years and recent member of the Oakland County League. I had the privilege of working with Judy Bateman on a recent forum for Birmingham School Board. And what I found most interesting in working on my first forum was the candidates and finding, I wish I had even done more homework, but I think I'm going to stress, you need to know where the funding comes for these candidates who are running. Because as I listened to the philosophy and the answers that some of these people gave, you know where their partiality is. And after the discussion, it was very apparent some of these people had funding from places that we would not support. So not only do I emphasize what this young lady said, who's running for the library board, but I think you need to research candidates because it really does impact on both library boards and school boards and their philosophy of operations. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
That's a good point. Yes, yes.
Thanks, Shelley. What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just wondering if they had to disclose the sources of their funding
before the election. I thought it was 30 days after the election.
We have a clerk in the room. We have a retired clerk in the room.
We do.
But let me go to Debbie, who is a practicing clerk
that's
for
right.
West
Yeah.
So thank you. The answer is every candidate has to file a campaign finance report with Oakland County, and you can search them. And there is a deadline to which, if it's a late contribution, it still has to be in there. There's a report filed. Even in a non-election year, you're filing 2 quarterly reports and an annual, and in an election year, you're filing a report before the election, after the election, and an annual report after each election. So if you go to the Oakland County Campaign Finance website, you can put the last name in, search the candidate, and they have to list any donation or in-kind donation, not just a monetary, but an in-kind donation has to be listed too. So it is fairly easy. Takes a little bit of time and a little bit of research, but it is fairly easy to find out who's supporting them.
And they know that Oakland County?
Oakland County Campaign Finance website. If you just Google Oakland County Campaign Finance website.
And they don't get to wait and say, oh, this just came in.
There is a late reporting, and I've never had that, so I'm not sure exactly how it works, but there is a late reporting, but I think it still has to be in, it's based on if it's after the close of books.
Is it all donations or donations above a certain dollar?
No, all donations. And if the donation is over, and I don't know what the amount is right now, but if it used to be, if it was over $100, you had to have the work location and their occupation.
And is this for partisan and non-partisan?
This is for any elected.
Any elected.
No, well, let me qualify though, because if a candidate isn't going to do a lot of fundraising because they don't need a lot of money for a race, they can file an exemption from filing campaign finance reports. So in that case, it won't be as easy to find. It's oakland.mi.campaignfinance.us, but it's probably easier to just Google.
That's just for local candidates.
Yes.
If it's a statewide candidate, you want to go on the state Secretary of State website. It'll have the same information for people who are running for state house, state senate, governor, etc.
But they do, like if they're not going to be, getting a lot of money, fundraising a lot of money, they do have the ability to file an exemption.
Yeah, 1,000 or less.
1,000 or less. So, if they're not a candidate that's going to have a lot of competition, typically they're going to file that and not fundraise. I did want to add one quick comment though. When Tara was talking about those little notes that mean a lot. Yes. Okay, it hasn't been so fun to be a clerk the last few years.
True.
And
We appreciate you.
Yes.
And when we get excited, we're like, we got fan mail. And it's only like 1 or 2 an election, but it takes a dejected election staff and it lifts them up a lot to get somebody who says, I appreciate what you do. So I haven't done it at the libraries, but I think I'm gonna start because I do know how meaningful it is to my staff. I mean, you literally have to say, we got fan mail, and then we actually make a copy of it and tape it to our wall. So, just please do. I think it's a great point. The job I elected to in 16 and the job I do now are not the same job. Right. And I know it's the same for library. Mm-hmm. And you have so many people telling you what you're doing wrong, and we've gone from the defenders of democracy to the purveyors of fraud. And it is really when you get people who let you know they appreciate what you do, it goes a long way, and it does for all of my staff. So, and I have some of my election workers here, so thank you.
It just reminds me I should write you guys a note then.
I would like to say just one quick thing. Thanks, Debbie. So my quick thing is if you go to your local clubs, they do endorsements. They research your candidates that are running, and they actually do endorsements. So if there's 6 people running for school board, they'll tell you what 3 that they suggest.
The unions
Oh.
endorse the.
Yeah, what
club are you
Well,
talking
when I say club, it's your like-minded club, okay?
Political party, yes.
I rely so heavily on my West Bloomfield club. I learned so much from them, and we really need everybody to help get out the vote and help this banning books to stop it. And that's the best way to do it.
And look at, there are a lot of endorsements, and look at an organization who you respect.
We need to think about the fact that it's
Okay.
after 2:00.
Okay. I
We
said
could
just
be
look-
here all day.
Free press
Yeah.
news, union endorsements, lots of endorsements. Look at someone you respect and see who they endorse.
Debbie, we are always grateful when you attend a league meeting because you're a wealth of information, so thanks for being there. But I know they need to go back to work, but Sheila Bryce, who's a former Birmingham library trustee, wants to add one thing.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate the West Bloomfield clerk. I have a question for you. Is there still a law on the state books or county about candidates declaring on their signs who paid for their sign?
Yes.
So if that is not there, then what is the next course to follow?
I would, depending on the level, I would contact the state or the county.
County clerks.
The county clerk's office.
They can
They will have a person dedicated to taking that report.
County clerk. Thank you very much.